and welcome to the fourth lesson on cryptocurrency security. In this video, we'll be discussing backups. So backups are not a new or super exciting topic, but they're extremely important to your security plan because they ensure that should the worst happen, you have redundancy in place to make sure that you never get locked out of your own funds. Ideally, you want to back up your private keys in multiple locations to ensure redundancy, but you also want to be smart about it. We're going to want to make sure that our backups are well protected because we want to make sure that every additional backup does not carry additional risk. Listen, your data is precious. Don't ever make the mistake of not backing up your data. You can always buy a new laptop or PC or whatever, but your data, that may be difficult or impossible to retrieve. Look, life happens. Hard drives crash, devices go up in flames, accidents happen, and natural disasters occur. Life is all about these unexpected incidents. But having your data backed up locally and offsite can do wonders for you. As I said, if the worst happens, thankfully all it would take is restoring your backups and you'll be up and running in no time. We want to back up our crypto information or wallet on a thumb drive, on a server, ideally an encrypted server, or something like an external hard disk. Essentially, we want to back up everything. In fact, we want to have 2 or 3 or 4 backups. At the very least, we want 1 on-site and 1 off-site. But that said, we want as many as we can. You know, take a cue from Mother Nature. She knows how to scale. Look inward. Your DNA is replicated to every single cell in your body for good reason. Inside the nucleus of every cell, there's backups. You can lose millions of cells and it's no problem because there's always another copy. So be like Mother Nature. When it comes down to it, your computers don't matter. It's what you create with them that does. Your laptop could burst into flames, but it doesn't matter if you have a good backup. Hardware and software are replaceable, but your data is not. Once it's gone, it is gone. And my point is that it's especially true of your digital assets. You don't want to be that person who lost thousands of dollars in crypto simply because you didn't have a backup. So get yourself an external hard drive or 2, or maybe a couple USB sticks. They're cheap and they'll last a long time. You don't need a lot of room to store backups of your wallets, so don't be afraid to get the smallest size. That being said, I like to get more than 1 stick because I expect them to fail. It goes without saying there's not a lot of margin in the $5 memory stick business. So importantly, never back up to just 1 external disk or drive and consider your job done. But more importantly than that is an offsite backup. If your house burns down, having your backup sitting in a drawer isn't much good. If you have a large amount of cryptocurrency, consider getting a safety deposit box at a bank and throwing your backups in there. See, banks are still good for something. You might also want to consider an online backup to the cloud. Google Drive or Dropbox do an okay job, but if you're serious, check out something like Backblaze, which lets you manage your own encryption keys. As I said in earlier chapters, never, ever trust someone to manage your private keys for any reason. For that reason, even though a service like Backblaze has their own encryption, I don't fully trust it and neither should you. We'll touch on this in a later lesson, but only backup files that you've encrypted yourself. Regardless of which software wallet you choose, it's important to encrypt all the data that it creates. Mind you, this is one of the advantages of using a hardware wallet over a software wallet because it does all of this work for you. But if you're using a software wallet, you'll need to be certain you know how and where it stores this data. Good software wallets will give you the option or prompt to select where to store your backup file, and they'll encourage you to encrypt your data file by providing a passphrase, otherwise known as a password. It can be useful to think of encryption like a safe that you put your file into, and the only way you gain access to it, the key, is by using a passphrase that you specify, so you made the key. Once you've encrypted your backup file, it provides a little security because the key store is locked away behind the password you defined. Now, should a thief know the password, they'd be able to get into your wallet so long as they also had the key store backup file, But that's certainly harder for them to do, rather than just trying to steal your private key, which is just a long string of characters and numbers. One trick to easily add security to your backup file, be that a .json or .dat file, whatever your wallet gives you as the encrypted backup file, is that we're going to put it into an encrypted .zip folder. If you don't have compression software, go to ninite.com, which is a fantastic website for quickly downloading free software. I like 7-Zip the best, but WinRAR is pretty okay too. Once you have it downloaded and installed, simply find your wallet's backup file, right-click on it, find the compression options for the software you have. For example, I look for the 7-Zip in the list, so I hover over that, which brings up a submenu of options for 7-Zip. I'll look for the option Add to Archive. This brings up a prompt which will ask us a bunch of different questions. There's really not much you need to set here other than the password you're going to encrypt this .zip folder with. Just be sure to use a different password than the one you used to encrypt the wallet backup file with. You also want to make sure that you use the AES-256 encryption method in the bottom right. It might be defaulted to the Zip Crypto encryption method, but the AES-256 encryption method is far superior and will give you better security. Hit OK when you're done, and now your wallet backup is safely behind 2 layers of protection. This is because the .zip folder has its password, and your wallet backup has a password as well. To recover your wallet backup from this .zip folder, simply open the .zip folder with any compression software like 7-Zip, and when you try to extract the contents of that .zip folder, it will ask for the encryption password you just set. If you really want to get crazy, put your encrypted wallet backup, which is now in that encrypted .zip folder, into a USB stick or external hard drive, and then encrypt that storage device. To encrypt your external media device, such as a USB stick or external hard drive, simply pull up My Computer in Windows, find the device, right-click on it, and select Turn on BitLocker. BitLocker is a full disk encryption feature included with Windows Vista and later. It's designed to protect data by providing encryption for entire volumes. By default, it uses the AES encryption algorithm in cipher-block chaining or XTS mode with a 128-bit or 256-bit key. BitLocker is pretty straightforward to use. It'll just ask you for a password to encrypt your drive, and then it will ask you if you want to encrypt the whole volume or just part of it. You'll also have an option for how to back it up, either to save to a Microsoft account, print the recovery key, or save it to a backup recovery file. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? There's been cases of vulnerabilities found with BitLocker, and maybe that's likely true, that it's not the most robust security solution out there, but the point is that even if the encryption on your drive fails somehow, there's still 2 more layers of security protecting your sensitive data. Now, this whole setup may seem like overkill, but this is how security works. Redundancies and fail-safes to ensure that your assets remain protected. Let's say a hacker somehow got access to the password for the wallet recovery file. Look, that's not good, but even if they got their hands on the USB stick holding your backup, they couldn't use it unless they had all 3 different passwords. They can't just breach the entire system simply because they have the one password. They need all 3 distinct different passwords and physical access to the device holding the information. I don't know about you, but I think the odds are in your favor. And again, you don't have to use this method. You can use any method you want. This sort of Russian doll encryption method is a little bit overkill, but hopefully it gives you some ideas about how to better secure something as simple as a single file. And in this way, we make sure that our backups are not potential vulnerabilities for us. You know, if we accidentally drop that USB stick on the street, that no one can use that to get the better of us. And furthermore, it gives you confidence that you can make as many of these backups as you want, that you can have multiple backup locations, and that it's not going to compromise your security. But that being said, what's the easy answer here? I mean, what's a good amount of backups? Is there any advantage to having 4 backups instead of 3? Is cloud storage better than physical storage for backups? Can I use both? Look, there's going to be a lot of questions here, And the answers really depend on you. It's something that I'm going to stress over and over in this class. The degree of your security depends on your individual security plan. If you've got $1 million worth of Bitcoin, then a more complex security plan is warranted over someone with $10,000 of Bitcoin. If you don't think you can keep track of 4 different backups, each with 3 different passwords, then don't. Do what works for you, but make sure that you do something. Make sure you plan. Make sure your plan can stand up to the challenges of real life. What happens if your house burns down? What happens if your computer's hard drive crashes? What happens if you forget a password? What happens if you're no longer with us tomorrow? How would someone you want to pass your assets on to use your backup? Take pride in crafting a security plan that includes redundancy and follow through with it. You'll feel so much better when you know that your plan can continue working even with multiple points of failure. The day might never come when you need to use a backup, but if it does, you'll be thanking your previous self over and over. Isn't that worth it? This is part of being your own bank. Not only are you fully in charge of your security, but you're also your own insurance agent. No one is going to bail you out if you're locked out of your own funds because you didn't plan or have redundancy. Trust me, you don't want to be there. Knowing that your money is out there, almost ethereal, you can see it, but you can't touch it, to me, that's worse than having it outright stolen. One last thing before I go is that I need to stress very explicitly how important it is to back up your authenticator seeds. And these are little strings that exchanges and wallets and whatever uses Google Authenticator will give you for two-factor authentication when you're setting it up. When you're setting up a new account on these sites and tying that account to your Authenticator app, it will give you a seed to store. Importantly, and I learned this the hard way, Google Authenticator and many Authenticator apps don't save account-wide. If you lose your device or your backup keys, you can be screwed. Google does not save your third-party authentication information on its cloud, and it's only saved on the device you took that QR picture of. If your phone is lost, this info is lost unless you saved a master key, that seed, when you signed up for that third-party two-factor authentication. The emergency keys Google gives are for Google services only. They will not work getting past the two-factor authentication on Binance, for example. So save your master keys, otherwise known as the seeds. You can be locked out of your account on exchanges if you accidentally lose or break your phone because you didn't save the seeds. Thankfully, some sites will be nice enough to restore your access should you ask nicely and go through an extensive identity verification check. Trust me, you do not want to have to go through this stressful process. However, the benefits of two-factor authentication cannot be understated. In the next video, we'll explore this important security measure.